Okay, I do love these. What is the simplified form of each expression? Well, for number one, anything to the 0 power equals 1. Notice that there's nothing outside the parentheses. The entire base, negative 4.2, is being raised to the 0 power. And what does that result in? That results in 1. Anything to the 0 power is 1. Okay? Now, for number 2, there's something interesting going on for number 2, which is that this negative right here, see this negative right there? That is not inside the parentheses. That's not part of the base. That is not being raised to the negative second power. So how do we expand this and write it? We could say, well, that negative or negative 1 is on top, and we're moving because of the negative. We're moving that 4 base down to the bottom and making now that exponent of 2 positive. And if you look for that answer, you will see that rather than them writing negative 1/16, which they could, they're just saying, here it is, there's a negative there, making the whole thing negative, and shorten that just a little bit, and the 4 squared is on the bottom because that 4 had a negative exponent on it. The 4 is the base, the negative is not. So there's that. Okay. Number 3, however, number 3, you see that the negative is indeed inside the parentheses, so that's part of the base. So that also gets moved to the bottom. So we say there's nothing left on top, so we put a 1. What do we put on bottom? Negative 3 in parentheses. And what is it raised to now? Since we moved it to the bottom, we used up the negative, and it becomes a positive. And if we keep that 1 on top, and we say on the bottom, it essentially says negative 3 times negative 3. What's negative 3 times negative 3? Negative times negative is positive, and 3 times 3 is 9. That's C right there. That's your answer. Okay, let's keep going. For number 4, you can see that which part of this has a negative exponent? Simply just the g to the negative 2. This is the only thing. The g is what has a negative exponent on it. So we leave the 8 on top. We also leave the d to the 6th on top. And we move the g squared to the bottom. And where do we find that answer? That's D. Okay. Continuing on, we see number 5, we see something that has a negative exponent, this a to the negative 5. Well, remember, if it's already on the bottom and has a negative exponent, it will jump over the bar to the top. So now we have this a to the negative 5 jumping to the top as a to the 5th. And there was only 1 on top, so it's basically multiplying by 1. So we don't write 1a to the 5th. We just write a to the 5th. And since there's nothing now left on the bottom, it's like it's over 1, but we don't write a to the 5th over 1. Just not what we do. We simplify things by assuming that it's over 1, but not showing it. So our answer then becomes a to the 5th, and that is number 5 right there. And finally, we've got this fraction where something's jumping. We're going to have that 3 stay on top because there's no negative on that. We're going to have that b stay on the bottom because there's no negative exponent on that. But that a to the negative 9, that negative tells us to jump that to the top, lose the negative in the process, a to the 9th. And everything else stays where it is. So we've got 3a to the 9th over b, and that is D.